Okay, yeah, so let's just start. I'll say a bit about myself and my journey with starting Proof Bakery. Um, so, Proof Bakery, we're an artisan bakery that trains and employs refugee women. And for a bit of context, I come from a foodie family in Singapore, where I grew up. This is my family, and if you can spot me, there will be a small prize later. Um, but and so my family loves food, and I grew up just experimenting with food, trying all sorts of different flavors, being very open to kind of different cuisines from different cultures. And then when I was 19, I came to Coventry to do my degree at Warwick in politics and sociology. And when I graduated, I did a few different things. And then come sort of 2015, 2016, was looking for a career change. And it was at about this time that the refugee crisis particularly started to become really prevalent in the news. So I think many of you will have heard stories about lifeboats sinking in the Mediterranean, or people trying to make their way from Syria over to the UK or to other countries in search of rebuilding their lives. So this was something that was really moving to me, and I kind of started wanting to do something about it, even though I didn't really know what. And I had been baking my own bread, sourdough bread, in my kitchen, just learning and kind of experimenting on my own for about three or 4 years by that point. And then suddenly, out of just mentioning that I wanted to do something with refugees, a friend of mine asked if I would teach a bread making class at a refugee supported housing project in Coventry. So I went and taught the class. And during that time, I had a kind of light bulb moment that all of the women who came to the class already were excellent bakers. They'd been handling dough, in the kitchens alongside their mums from when they were very, very small. They had many really great techniques and flavors. And some of them even recognized some of the more niche kit that I brought with me. So I showed them my proving basket. And one of the women, who didn't speak really any English at all, said that she had had something like that in her home in Syria. And so that kind of took me from thinking, oh, it might be nice to do something with refugees, to realizing that they actually had a skill set that could turn into not just a sort of nice hobby for fun in this country, but a way of gaining employment. And so I think that really kind of ignited my desire to do something. So I then went and kind of got onto this program called Feeding the City, which was an incubator program for food social enterprises. And through that, did a lot of kind of piloting and testing to see whether a bakery with refugee women would be viable. Um, and what I learned through this program was, well, loads of different things actually. But one of the things that I learned about was that the model of bakery that we chose was actually really key, because we talked to quite a few bakers who started their own bakeries and realized that overheads were a problem. So right from the start, having to cover rent for a kitchen space that sometimes is larger than you need, and sometimes having to find new users for that space as well. For instance, to be a cafe, to sell meals, to sell hot drinks, just in order to meet your rent, when what you really wanted to do was to start a bakery. Kind of that, so that was feedback that came to us from lots of different baker startups, and it kind of felt like the tail wagging the dog. So we didn't necessarily want to rent a big space and then have to think about how to pay for it. What we wanted to do from the start was to put as much of our income as we could into training and employing refugee women. So what we eventually settled on was a community-supported bakery where people take out subscriptions with us. So instead of coming by a shop, people would order a bread subscription online and then pick it up from one of 12 community collection points all across Coventry, weekly or fortnightly or monthly. And this started to give us a more predictable cash flow with which to train and employ the women. I put this photo in not because it's particularly related to our business model, but just because sometimes a great deal of luck is involved as well. And what happened was that we ordered a 30-kilogram mixer when we were starting up without measuring the height of the space that we had to put it in. And then when it arrived, we realized that it was millimeters, it fit within millimeters, and we decided to take that as a sign that we probably ought to proceed. Yeah, so we ran a pilot, and this told us that there was the demand for the bread, that there was a good kitchen space that we could use, and that women did want to come and train with us. And so in August 2018, we launched our website, and we've been baking and training women since. This is the graduation tea party for our first cohort of bakers and their children. And you can see one of our baker trainees graduating and receiving her certificate. And then since summer 2018, we've also tried to find other income sources to help us to train and employ more women. So we've launched a line of sweet treats, cakes and cinnamon buns and baklava buns, different flavors, some of them classically British and some of them more from the countries from which our trainees originate. We've also started to cater for events. So we did a dessert buffet for 400 people in Coventry Cathedral in December last year. And we've also started to teach baking classes, which have actually recently gone online because of COVID. And then through our work, we've had the fortune of also starting to think about replication to other cities. And so this is us winning a grant from the Cinnamon Network to replicate the bakery project to other cities, which is something that we're really looking forward to doing over the next 3 to 5 years. Since COVID, with the lockdown, we've obviously had to change a great deal of how we operate. We weren't able to do community-based subscriptions anymore because nearly all of our community collection points had shut. So we pivoted into delivering boxes of artisan bread and sweet treats house to house instead. So people order a box online, and that again can be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, and it shows up on their doorstep. In fact, if you live in Coventry, we have a really great promotion on at the minute till Sunday, where if you order a new regular box subscription, we'll give you £5 off. So that's nearly half price to support refugee women into work. And we've also been offering customers the opportunity to donate bread to Foodbank, because I think quite early on in the lockdown, it was apparent to us that the economic impact of COVID on the nation and on Coventry as a city would be really great. And so, yeah, so we just put it out there. Would anyone like to donate your weekly loaf to Foodbank if you can't collect it? And a lot of our existing customers switched their orders over, but equally we were quite surprised by the number of new customers who never bought any bread from us at all, who just signed up to donate, you know, a weekly loaf or 3 weekly loaves to Foodbank. And then quite a number of grant funders have gotten on board with that as well. And so through this option of donating to food bank, we're now sending Coventry Foodbank's 500 loaves a week, and we'll be doing that till February of next year. So that's of course keeping all of our team in work, but it also means that every emergency food parcel going out through food bank for the next 6 months can have a wholesome loaf of proof bakery bread in it. And that's actually been a really great experience of pivoting for us in lockdown. We've managed to stay afloat. We've kept the bakery open this whole time, when we're aware that lots of other food businesses have struggled, and all of the team have retained their jobs. So this is something that we're very grateful for. We don't take it for granted, and we're aware that it's a constantly evolving situation that we just have to kind of keep on top of. But the best part of all of this is working with a group, like an ever-growing group of really resilient, determined women. And so I thought that it might be good to finish by telling you some of their stories. So this is Linda. That's not her real name, but she came to our pilot. And before this, she had never gotten on public transport through Coventry by herself. So through coming to our pilot, that's what she learned to do. This is Huang, also not her real name. But when she came to our pilot, she said that she had only ever baked pizza by taking it out of its wrapper and putting it in the oven. And it only ever came out one of two ways, raw or burnt. But she now has learned to bake sourdough and bakes for her family at home regularly. And this is Hayat, who is a graduate from our first training course for bakers. When she graduated, she actually went and got a job as a baker in her local Kurdish corner shop in Coventry. But 2 weeks later, she actually came back to us saying, "They don't speak English in my Kurdish corner shop, so it's not going to help me to improve. Can you give me a job?" And since that time, she's now co-training our new trainees with me. And she's also passed her driving test and bought a car, and was able to go and visit her family in Iraq last summer with her children. Yeah, so I think some of my reflections on our story so far are that you've got to have the reason to do to start an enterprise. You've got to have that spark of passion, which for me came from teaching that bread making workshop. But you've also got to have a kind of wisdom about how to go about doing it, which often means being willing to change your model. Why does a bakery have to have a shop? And yeah, being willing to adapt, to stay true to your goals, but to be willing to try different ways of getting there. And probably one of the most satisfying parts of starting the bakery has been realizing that it's not just me now who's committed to it, but that we've got a whole team of women who really believe in this, and a whole team of, loads of customers and volunteers across Coventry as well. Yeah, so it's become much more of a partnership and a team effort now. That's it.